To River West Radio on WXRWLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee and Troubadour Bakery, makers of artisan breads and scratch-baked goodies. Visitors to Collectivo's Bayview Cafe can look in on Troubadour Bakers as they prepare breads and cafe favorites daily. More info is at collectivocoffee.com. All right, Gabe is just called in. Gabe, you're a good man. And listeners, thanks for listening, most certainly. If you're listening live, it's a beautiful evening in Milwaukee. Many people out on the street, lots of traffic here in River West. River West is a part of Milwaukee, west of the river. The east side's on the other side. North Shore is north of the east side. Those are all lake communities. You have downtown, you have East Town, the east side, Shorewood, Whitefish Bay, Fox Point, Bayside, Mequon. So, and then, south and west are different stories, certainly different communities. But I live in the lake communities, and I know throughout my lifetime, if you're bored, you can do this, or go here tonight. Or I said, man, I've never been bored a second of my life. It's not the way it works, man. Never going to happen either. So yeah, I always say trim the fat and eliminate the variables. I just say the heck out of no. I know we've covered this before, but it's important. It's like push-ups. It's like sit-ups. It's like eating celery. I mean, you just got to do it. And yeah, because if you can either just engage in all this arbitrary nonsense, and I guarantee you will have never done much with your life except just be a consumer of random experience, which ain't going to happen. I don't think I've went out to see a band like in 25 years. I could actually care less. I've been asked hundreds of times, and just go home and read and go to sleep, man. Wake up the next morning, birds are chirping, sun is shining. Lots of good stuff, man. And I don't need my ears ringing either. I mean, if I want to see someone perform some music, maybe Wednesday at noon, sounds good to me. Other than that, man, I'm hitting the rack. Yeah, what a life it is. What a crazy tripped out life. We had a thunderstorm roll through. I was at one of the offices on the third floor, eye level with the trees, just seeing them sway in the malevolent weather. And I could have stayed there and did some work, but I decided to go back to my side of town. But yeah, it was neat. The gentlemen were doing their thing. Tom, bless your heart. Mr. Pankowski has just walked past, a very pep in his stride, and so on and so forth. And Gabe, we have you here. You will be ready to roll soon enough, definitely. And Suki, always a great show, man. Suki's a wonderful, wonderful person, good heart, all of that kind of stuff. Her show resonates with wonder, with culinary delight, so good stuff. I think it was a few nights ago, I revisited Antoniani's Lanate. Kind of fell out of favor with L'Avventura, so The Night I found much more favor with. I have to revisit now the Eclipse, and then Zabriskie Point, and maybe Red Desert too. And then obviously there are his films before L'Avventura. I think I saw a Super 16 millimeter print of L'Avventura at the university recently. And I'd like to visit Lanate again, actually, and just take another look at that. On top of that, also in one of my work situations, I saw the best offer, a very stylized film on art, and not bad at all, in a very Hollywood-esque craft type-wise, where every syllable counts for something, every movement indicates, continuity of a narrative, or a continuation, I should say, of narrative. So that, and it was thankfully it was a good film. So check that out as well. And probably will not have time to see a film tonight. I see about maybe 2 or 3 films a week. It's pretty tough to see that because I can't stay up in the evening, so it's pretty hard to see films, and during the day I got to roll. So we'll see. Oh, and also got to see Julius Caesar in Shorewood, outside the Shorewood Library, by the Stone Soup Shakespeare Company. Hey, Tom, how are you doing, my man? Thank you, sir. He brings. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Tom's a great guy. And so, Gabe, yes, we will. It's 7:05. We will get to you shortly, and thank you certainly for your patience. We don't play music on the show anymore. I was trying to, for my own edification, hook up with Grand Funk Railroad Sally, but the internet is a little bit slow, and it's actually still slow. It's still determining its fate, but not in my favor. So I don't know what to do. So anyway, yeah. So then this morning, I'm reading this book on a screenwriter and his collaboration with Hitchcock for a handful of films, and just what a delightful book. But because of my memory, I can't just pin the exact details of it. But I'm also reading a book on the Hitchcock script writing process with collaborators. It's from Illinois Press. So I'm actually reading 2 books right now on Hitchcock and his screenwriters and their screenwriting process. So in the summer, I refer to noir, Hitchcock, and a variety of other things. And like I said, getting into sci-fi with Ray Bradbury and such like that too, because I've always dismissed that genre because I'm more into someone contemplating life over doing dishes. That's actually what really interests me in life, and that makes me a 2%er right off the bat. Everyone else is, cars going fast and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's not my kick. Never has been, never will be. So yeah, like I said, doing dishes, that's probably about where it's at, basically. And hopefully there's a sunset outside the window and all of that kind of stuff as well. There's a lot of activity, too, around here. This is a wonderful day. People inside, people outside. Here's a musician who's just arrived. He does music for one of the big television shows on TV. What is it? Master of None. So I'm just looking at my acquaintance, my friend. He is one of the musicians, does the music for that show, and he's just parked his bike here. Yeah, and many luminaries around the radio station here, so that's a good thing. And I got a great view outside of all the people out on the sidewalk, all the activity. The sun's coming back out, casting its golden hue on the various buildings. And we have a luminary entering. DDA, my man, I hope life is good. And if it's good, you made it that way, correct? Yeah, because you earned your keep, man. Okay, Gabe, we're about to get to you. I think this is going to wrap up this maniacal monologue in about 2 minutes here. So yeah, I started Julius Caesar on March 15th, which is the Ides of March, and I'm going to have to wrap that up. And I'm reading a book on not on Shakespeare, but on the kind of the interpretation or the use of his work, in a sense, or the existence of his work in particular realms of ideologies, and it's called the Shakespeare Wars. And I was actually just at the library and picked up BBC radio dramas of Shakespeare. That's great stuff to fall asleep to in the morning. When I wake up like at 3, 4 in the morning, I'll put on Wayne Dwyer CD set. That's real good stuff. You always want life-affirming stuff. You always want a self-empowerment and roll with that, because like I say, the subconscious mind takes in all of this garbage on a daily basis, and it's that, if you think about it, your unconscious must be freaking out, man. and it's like, oh, you can consciously make decisions on what to put in it. See, I don't get into the news. About 35 years ago, I said, ooh, this is bad. Click. So that's not a part of my life, because all that is an exploitive interpretation of events to get the top advertising dollar. That's all it is. Does you no good, because you ain't going to go out there and do nothing about all of this stuff anyway. So it's all it is taking is time away from you for empowering and enacting your own self potential, getting you even more confused. But do what you want. It's a free country, definitely, man. But it's all good stuff. But again, like I say, in the here and now, if you're listening, this is your one shot at life, man. And like I say, you believe anything else, like you're coming back, you're probably coming back as a grasshopper. You probably get stepped on day one. And for me, that just ain't happening. It ain't the way to do it. I'd be doing it now, you know. And one good thing about Tom, I will add, is he never imposes his ideologies or beliefs on anyone. He makes you aware of certain abstract events that you really don't have to start sweating about. So he's got that. He doesn't like break your space and get too close and start, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? Making unimportant things urgent, you know, and freaking your blood pressure out, you know. Dude, you mess around with TV, the internet, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff, it's like you may as well kiss 50% of your life goodbye. It's gone. It is gone. It is over. It is finito. So, you know, these are things to consider. Like I say, I'd be taking walks. I'd be eating carrots, bananas, celery, green peppers, red peppers, lettuce, all of that stuff. But again, it doesn't matter, man. Do what you want, you know, absolutely. But you always have these options, you know. So, you know, do whatever's in your best interest. You know, that's what I would definitely recommend. Don't be a victim. Don't be a martyr. Times are tough, can be tough. They can be challenging. You're probably to blame for 96% of all your problems. I know I am. I'm like 100% to blame, or 99.9% to blame for anything, because, hey, man, you're just making all of these decisions, and just wake up in the morning and concentrate on what's in your best interest. And just like push-ups, just like sit-ups, they work. Gabe, welcome to your life. Or maybe not. Oh, my. The whole thing's gone south. Hold on one second. Gabe, if you're out there in listener land, call back. I put you on, and we'll get you. If that was Gabe, I suspect it was. The timing was immaculate. It most likely could be no other. So, Gabe, dude, if and when you call back in, we'll get you right on the air for sure, for sure, for sure. So, definitely. Yeah, it's summer. Great time for reading. Great time for watching films. Great time for excellent. Great time for getting Gabe's call and putting him immediately on the air. Nope. Oh, He's having trouble calling. Oh, really? Oh, no, I'm just in being informed that there are troubles potentially in technical land. Is that correct? Okay, yes, it is correct. So he will attempt again because he's a warrior, or I assume that he will attempt again. And, you know, that'll be that. And, Tom, without mentioning any details or anything like that, is it on the 22nd that we're going to that situation?
I think it's tomorrow, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, okay, tomorrow. Okay, gotcha, yeah. And it's a situation with, I think, someone from Milwaukee that did the 70s TV industry, like Mary Tyler Moore and that. Would that be correct? Yeah, so people be talking crazy about all of these TV shows and that, in one ear, out the other. But you talk about Mary Tyler Moore, dude, that's where my mind is at, man. And I think I'm like, got a DVD set, so I'm on like the third or fourth season, and it's like, man, I can't figure out which last ones I watch. But yeah, that's Bob Newhart, Mary Tyler Moore. I can rock with that. What's her name?
Susan Silver.
Susan Silver. Excellent. Okay, and that's tomorrow. Oh, the 20th. Sweet. Gotcha. Good stuff. Thanks, Tom. Definitely. Yeah. So, and what shows did he do, my man? He's looking it up. He's good at this stuff.
The girl, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Bob
Mar-
Newhart, Partridge Family,
Yes.
and many others.
Okay, great. Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart. She worked on those. I'm down. Yeah, actually, I'm reading that the show's bio. Oh, here we go. Let's try this again. My man, are you here?
I am here.
Oh, excellent. Take it away, my man. I've said more than enough, man.
Well, as we had talked about previously last week on the show with Antoniani, I was going to bring up Red Desert, but I didn't get around to it. That Red Desert really is a masterful, beautiful-looking work of art. It was, it really is one of Antoniani's. For anyone that isn't familiar with his work, Antoniani was one of the main crossover European art house directors of the 1960s who gained widespread acclaim and was well known as as easily of a name as a lot of the other. He was probably the first European director besides like Rossellini, De Sica, and I'm trying to think. Who's the guy that directed Romeo and Juliet '68?
Zeffirelli, my man, Franco Zeffirelli.
Franco Zeffirelli, names like that sort of gained this more commonplace use in the States in the Kurosawa in the post Ron, I'm sorry, not Ron, Rashomon era, and even Teshigahara after The Lady of the Dunes in '64. Which was a huge art house hit that had surprising crossover success in the United States. So a few of those Jean Renoir and Alain Denas. I'm trying to think who directed Hiroshima Mon Amour.
Alain Resnais, my man.
Resnais, yeah, Alain Resnais had huge success in the United States as well.
Yeah, last year at Muriel,
Yes.
Providence. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that he definitely rivals Antoniani as that epitome of European art house cinema. Definitely. I mean,
Absolutely.
Renee's French, Antoniani's Italian, and then also little less known, obviously, is the I will just call it the Russian art movement at the same period. So. Even I'm not saying it's a movement or anything like that, but there was, prior to Tarkovsky and that, there were some very prominent, great cinematic masterpieces from Russia, aesthetic ones.
Absolutely. So, around that period in the late '50s and early '60s, there was this rising tide and wave of European art films that were starting. Not just European, but Japanese as well. World cinema was starting to gain some foothold in art in smaller cinemas, art cinemas, universities. Hiroshima Mon Amour, definitely a huge part of that. Last year at Marienbad, Bad, and Antoniani and Fellini with La Strada and a handful of other films. Bergman, Ingmar Bergman from Sweden, definitely had some resounding successes. And Japanese cinema was regarded very well in certain circles. The Venice Film Festival and Cannes Film Festival definitely had a huge part in showcasing a lot of talent to the world in a lot of these films and a lot of these filmmakers and their individual films and their collective filmographies. So a lot of these movies had this, they would strike deals at these festivals. They would be showcased, and distributors would take a chance, and they would just say, well, maybe there's a market. And sometimes they would only start in a few theaters and one or two theaters, and then if there was a reception to it, they would start traveling, and then there would all of a sudden be more and more. And then sometimes these films would even come to your local cinema. They would just, it'd take a while for them to circulate around the country, but they would gain gain a reputation and or notoriety, as Mark and I had talked about last week on the show, how a lot of these films titillated. There was oftentimes there was like a sexual factor or like a notorious factor with a lot of these films that
Roger Vadim.
Yes, absolutely. There's sort of this other factor to it. I was just reading about this in two different books as well. That a lot of the Swedish films and Blow Up, a huge part of the a huge part of the success of the film Blow Up is the fact that some people would dispute this, but the fact that it had full frontal female nudity in it, which in 1966 was, for a film that was as widely seen and as widely distributed as it was a first. That just had not been done. Just like in 1971's American film, The Last Picture Show, people forget that was one of the first films that openly, frankly, and straightforwardly discussed and showed a real rawness and a real vulnerability and the real sort of candid ugliness to teenage sexuality in general, and had a real frank use of nudity and unpleasantness to the nudity, where it wasn't necessarily titillating or it wasn't used to elicit the types of reactions that had been associated with flesh and with nudity in films of the 1950s and even in the 60s, where it was sort of a rawness and it was a frankness that was. Funny I use the word frank because I would actually compare the work of the style of cinematography in The Last Picture Show to Robert Frank. This sort of candid Americana, this sort of the imbued folkiness of the averageness of the tired West and of Texas. The Last Picture Show is one of two films that have been coming up in my mind a lot this last week. I just can't seem to escape it. I can't stop thinking about it. I haven't seen it in probably 12 years, and it's just one of those inescapable things that just is such an important film from such an important era, and just continues to have a resounding effect. Because Peter Bogdanovich was the director of the film, was such a huge figure in film criticism and in filmmaking around that time, and both its virtues, its hopes and dreams, and its ultimate egotistical, catastrophic failures, bloated, egotistical, pseudo-auteur, catastrophic failures. Lot of disappointment, financial disappointment, personal disappointment that came out of initial successes that led to just extreme disaster. When you look at how the sort of the American film movement collapsed on itself, in some ways, Coppola sort of reaching these extreme highs and then these utter lows. Peter Bogdanovich, the director, was looking like to become the next great American director, like the real genius of film to rival Stanley Kubrick in many ways. Had a real audacious style, was able to play with multiple genres, had this really, really, really deft and adept sense of the American, of this Americanism, and understood bygone eras too. And considering that he was only in his late 20s and early 30s, it was really just stutteringly and staggeringly baffling that a man of his age and his sensibilities was able to convey such a wisdom about previous times and places. But a lot of that could be owed to the fact that he and his former wife, who he, some people would say that the worst decision he ever made was becoming a product of the 60s and starting to sleep around with Sybil Shepherd, and then going from one to another of his leading ladies, of women, of drugs, sex, everything that came with the lifestyle, with a lot of lifestyles, not all lifestyles in the 60s and 70s. But his initial first wife, who many people say was very unfairly and unjustly not given co-director credit on The Last Picture Show, when the two of them first became acquainted when they first moved to Hollywood, They were such huge fans of the old Hollywood, of the what they call the golden age of Hollywood, and even the silver age of Hollywood. John Ford, George Cukor, Samuel Fuller, both the titans and the middleweights and the contenders were their heroes. I mean, these were just their absolute favorite filmmakers. These men who crafted out these Hollywood stories. Michael Curtiz, et cetera, and Bogdanovich and his wife studied these films from beginning to end. They knew every shot, they knew every edit, they knew every cut, they knew every motion, they knew, and before these wizards of film died, they got to know them personally. They were at their houses, they went to brunch at their homes, they had them over at their own home. They got to know the actors, the screenwriters, the costume designers, the set designers, the sound technicians. So they had firsthand understanding of how the old Hollywood system had worked, and they understood why it was sputtering out of control and failing in the 60s, where the system that had thrived so perfectly, not perfectly, but had thrived and created such these strong works of Hollywood art in the 30s and 40s for a film lover of the 1970s, someone who was of his age in the late 20s and early 30s and was just absorbed with movies. Stuff that was coming out of Hollywood in the 50s and 60s was just not matching up, by and large. In the early 60s, I should say, stuff that was coming out of the major studios was just not matching up to the stuff that had been coming out of the studios in the 40s and the late 30s. In terms of just the poignancy and the depth. And that started to change in the late 60s when really, really radical new forms of storytelling and innovative filmmaking started to come out of smaller studios and even just independent filmmakers, which the studios had no choice but to start subscribing to. So Bogdanovich becomes a huge central figure in this, in that he is writing for Cinema Magazine, as did one of our personal heroes, Harlan Ellison, who is one of the great science fiction writers of all time, one of the great film critics of all time, and one of the great essayists of all time. I can't say enough about Harlan Ellison, but especially his collection of film essays and film writings. Watching, highly recommended. Definitely up there I would put that in the top 100, if not the top 50 of the all-time American film publications of all time, for entertainment value alone, not necessarily for anything real informative or anything mind-blowing or game-changing, but just for sheer entertainment value. Very few people write as pointedly and as entertainingly as Harlan Ellison. I would almost call him in some ways like the Hunter S. Thompson of film writing. He has just a strong, brilliant, tenacious audacity. Really funny and just dead on. Even when I disagree with him, I just can't. There's so many points that he makes that have just such infallibly brilliant subjective logic that I just see things from a completely new critical perspective. And his look at what happened in cinema in the late 60s and 70s with this new film language and the film movement, and how Bogdanovich and all this pretension was a good thing, and in many ways it was its own undoing, because you look at what happened with most of those guys and they almost lost their shirts when they could have actually done what Spielberg and Lucas did, and they completely, they became like the richest guys in the world. Because Coppola ended up getting it all back, and now he's worth tons and tons and tons over with his wineries, which have made so much more money than any of his movies ever have. But in that 70s period, you had these young film brats that had studied films and had learned from the masters before them, and had taken the time and learned the wisdom the hard way by watching, which film schools didn't exist then. There was no such thing as film school, and they were just starting out as sort of. They were experiments and sort of widening art schools and taking, in some schools that were offering these programs were doing them just out of the fact that they were that there was money to be spent and college was affordable, and there was a large body of college going students. It was the largest college going body in history. Schools even in Wisconsin, like UW Oshkosh, were offering really, really competitive film courses, enviable film courses that people all around the country wanted to take. Smaller schools like that within state systems, that one or two schools per state would start an experimental curriculum. Let's see what we can do. And people would pick up cameras and start shooting based on experimental films and whims of things that they were seeing coming out in art houses, things like John Cassavetes' Shadows, Ingmar Bergman films, and more radically experimental stuff in the States, experimental films coming out of L.A. and New York, and even Russ Meyer films, stuff where it was just people with cameras and small crews just going out and making films and winding up with incredibly entertaining and brilliant and well shot and great looking results. Say what you will about the genre or the material, incredibly entertaining stuff with just a man and a camera and some editing software. I mean, some editing equipment and some sound designers. It's really amazing what you can do with just the basic tools. So with that being said, Bogdanovich learned from the masters and started to tinker around himself and really learned a lot while making the film Targets in 1968, which I think is critically underrated and overrated at the same time as a film he made for Roger Corman. And it shows just a brilliant new talent, sort of in that same school as other filmmakers, restricted and unleashed by Roger Corman, and simultaneously. So he goes on, strikes a deal with Bert Schneider and Bob Balahan to make The Last Picture Show. Huge critical and commercial success, and eventually it all comes crashing down the bigger his ego gets. He makes another great film, What's Up, Doc, which is just a great homage to the screwball comedies of the 30s and 40s. Then he makes Paper Moon, which is why probably in some ways in its time was even more well-regarded than The Last Picture Show, because it was more heartfelt, it was more sentimental. It's an easier film to absorb and understand, too. It's less complex, but it's equally touching and equally powerful. And probably Ryan O'Neal's greatest performance. Not much of an actor, but when he was in the hands of a director that understood his limitations, he was really allowed to flourish in those sort of brash vulnerability where he said more with literal silences. The Drive, never put to better use than in Walter Hill's The Driver from 1978. But I've just been thinking a lot about Peter Bogdanovich and the possibilities that were there and the path that his career did take, and the idea of these filmmakers that sometimes came back after 20 years and they said, "You'll never work in this town again," or "Your career's finished, you're finished." And, there they are making movies 30 years later, great movies, too. Bogdanovich just is a lover of cinema. He's truly a filmmaker and a film lover, a brilliant film historian. He's written books about film throughout throughout the years. He continues to write books about film and continues to make movies. The Last Picture Show just absolutely remains a huge testament to what's possible with black and white filmmaking. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you must.
Oh, Last Picture Show, I think I saw a 35 millimeter print of it recently. Oh, are you there, my man?
I'm here.
Yeah, I think we both, in one way or another, for a minute or a second or so, both weren't there for various reasons.
What are your impressions on that, Mark?
It's a fantastic film. It's and when you talk about, I think when you talk about him and his wife, making the film down there. It's actually, I think that's when he left his wife for Sybil Shepherd.
Yep.
That's how that occurred. No, it's a fantastic film, and it's American art as well. It's undoubtable. Beau Bridges, Sybil Shepherd, and yeah, I just totally dig it. It's very picturesque. It's very it's its own alienation and coming of age, the realm of alienation, coming of age, just very, very nicely done. And I want to say unless I see it recently, you have that ability to extemporaneously articulate things deeply. So when you ask me about it, I'm just coming up with these kind of like basic descriptions you probably could get from Joe Blow off the street, man. I don't know. Are you digging that, or are you thinking about other stuff?
Digging it, Mark, because you're actually speaking very specifically when you're saying picturesque. That's extremely true. That's not Joe Blow. Joe Blow says, "Oh, it's good, or it's average, it's okay. I liked it. Yeah, it's pretty cool." That's Joe Blow. When you say things like picturesque, that's exactly what that. The fact that film has like some of the most beautiful, ugly, picturesque ugliness, like the human ugliness in that film, the way that people treat each other in that film is so astute and so dead on, and it's such a humanistic portrait of, and the fact that it harkens back to a bygone era of this sort of.
Well, let me touch base on this. Sure. This came to light. I don't know if I had been thinking about this for a number of years, but I know there's actually a book that has recently come out on this, and this is like so serious and so ironically cool, as I'll explain in a second. It studies the culture of cool, and that's the thing with most films. Or no, wait a second. Well, we could talk about real life. That's why I am so stunned sometimes at people's grasp of witty and insightful vernacular and artistic expression, because I had grown up in the era of cool and kind of in that thing, and it's such a waste of time. And then to see some beautiful people talking in certain ways intelligently, and it's like, oh my gosh, in that culture of cool has wasted so much self-potential, has completely diminished so many lives. And with film, believe you me, in real life, people laugh, they make jokes. In films, they don't do that. Films are fake. People are not cynical 100% of the time. They don't go walking around, groveling and all of that stuff. And it's just not the way life works. So films always give this kind of dramatic, cynical, one-sided version of life, which just is not true. Now, someone like Scorsese or that in Mean Streets, where people are actually laughing and having a good time, is a rarity. So when you say it's all this constipated melodrama, no matter how great the film is, it's always one-sided. So The Last Picture Show is brilliant, but it's, as in 99% of films, it's melodramatically constipated in its take on life, whereas something like Mean Streets and that has like real, almost real people laughing, making jokes, having a good time, which is almost never seen in cinema.
Well,
it's a rarity, dude.
Mean Streets was a contemporary film when it came out, which is why it has such a strong present energy.
They didn't laugh in the 50s?
Well, what I'm saying is that The Last Picture Show has a realism to it in the way that it showed in ugliness. There is a lot of laughter in that film, actually. The scenes where it's Jeff Bridges, by the way. Jeff Bridges and Timothy Bottoms are hanging out, and they're just sort of doing nothing. They're hanging out, and they're just chatting about nothing because there's nothing to talk about. They live in a small town where there's nothing to do. There's no possibilities. There's no hope. And they just drive around,
it's not Beau
and they're
Bridges?
laughing.
It's Jeff Bridges?
Yep. And then the half-retarded kid who is walking around sweeping for no reason other than that he's sweeping, and that's sort of the statement that I think Bogdanovich was making with the film, was that in the Last Picture Show itself, literally the act of them watching Red River at the end of the film is more than just about this like Texas dying town. That's part of it. It's a part of like this dying age of America, of this this age that Bogdanovich had grown up in and seen, the 50s, this middle American 50s, or this thing that he had romanticized, and to show that really, well, this idea of America in the 1950s was actually pretty boring and ugly, and actually people are pretty awful a lot of the time. There's actually just a lot of awfulness that isn't shown in films, and there's a lot of normal things that people go through that are never shown in movies, like people's first sexual experiences, or people's heartbreak, or people's, and showing how people really talk to each other, which, like, Sybil Shepherd is just like villain, like she is a villainess in that way. She's got and she doesn't mean to be. It's not like she's plotting and she doesn't have all these femme fatale plans. She just can't help herself, which is so true in life, where people just do awful things, especially when they're young. It's not like they grow up and they like all of a sudden like treat each other like gentlemen and fine ladies and all of a sudden, but like especially when we're young, man, we just do such horrible things to the people that we love and that we care for, that we date, our family members, for no reason other than that we just don't even realize we're doing it, or we just can't help ourselves, or it's just too late. Sometimes it's just too late, and all of a sudden you're just, what have I done? What am I doing? Oh my God. When you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, you just make those kind of decisions without even realizing you're making them. And that's what I think The Last Picture Show is ultimately about, is just that impulse. But it also shows Ellen, like the older crowd, that they're still making those type of awful decisions that are ruining the lives around them without caring, and without really realizing that they're doing it, that they're destroying their own lives and destroying the lives of other people amid like the shame or the disappointment of shattered dreams, or of not even having any dreams. So those long panoramic shots of that desolate town, I think there's just such a caustic emptiness there that I could relate to growing up in a small city. Not that small, not like small town, main street small, but that type of frozen stuckness. I remember I watched the film in my living room at the house I grew up in Sheboygan, and I just remembered watching that film and feeling so like isolated. Like I related to the main character so much with the decisions that he had made, and the way that he had hurt people, and the way that all the characters hurt each other without really trying to. That I related to, like a sort of realism, the emotional realism. But yeah, like the dialogue, the staginess of it, it's still a film. It's very much made in the style of a 1940s melodrama. You're absolutely correct. Like a Michael.
Oh no, that's not what I meant. When I say no, even in contemporary cinema, it's all constipated melodrama. There's very little humanness or laughter or anything like that. I'm not saying that.
Well, I would.
No,
say,
this is,
I would say,
dude. This will go on for eternity. Believe you me.
That's true, but I see a lot of cinema.
In Apocalypse Now redo, I think after they added about a half hour to it, or more, or whatever. So it's an Apocalypse redo. I think you actually, if I remember correctly, someone humanly laughs in that. I think maybe Martin Sheen does. Captain Willard does. I'm not sure, but I seem to remember that in the haze of memory.
There's a lot of films where when people laugh, when people actually have a good time. I'll agree with you on that, Mark. It's a good point. There's a film that came out about 2 or 3 years ago that got critically completely destroyed and torn apart. It was called A Million Ways to Die in the West, and it was the second feature film by Seth MacFarlane, who's the brain behind Family Guy and all that nonsense. But as a filmmaker, he actually has some decent chops. He's got a wide variety of talents and interests, other than making the worst show on television. But he really he brought in this real brilliant, real funny take on the Western spoof. It's like he wanted to make a sequel to Blazing Saddles or something like that. And a large portion of the film is not funny, but there's a lot of sequences that really are. There's numerous sequences that just hit their mark perfectly. And the film was completely destroyed by not completely destroyed, but pretty pulled apart by critics when it first came out. And it's actually a very funny film. It has a lot of strengths. It has a lot of good qualities. And it has a lot of. It's just a really funny film, and I only saw it because numerous friends of mine recommended it, but cautiously, knowing that I probably wasn't going to like it. But they said, I'm really surprised at how good this film was, and I'm even more shocked because it got so pulled apart. But there's a lot of scenes where characters laugh in the film, and that's one of the joys that I really had of that movie. Is that there's like 4 or 5 scenes where Charlize Theron and the main character are just goofing around, joking around, and you get the feeling that it's sort of scripted improvisation where it's right on the border between the two. And she was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Actress of the Year, which is really strange because I actually thought her performance was the strongest part of the film, in that she doesn't quite appear to do the to go full Jimmy Fallon and break down into laughter and look at the camera. Or be able, like, lose character and go back into the actor, but she has this real natural and really intoxicating way of laughing, of being lost in laughter, and there's something so attractive about that. Not necessarily in like that I'm attracted to her in that means, but as a means of that, it just feels so real, and it feels like I'm actually watching a real person. I'm watching someone really act at the same time and not act at the same time. It was a really interesting performance and a really interesting note in an otherwise pretty bad film that had some really good attributes, that being one of the strongest ones. The Judd Apatow films also have that sort of candid naturalism where characters talk and laugh and joke. David Thompson has brought that up in 2 of his books, where he's talked about the Judd Apatow ethos of this new wave of improvisational comedy, and even the themes in his movies and how they deal with this sort of tougher to describe undercurrent of our society, of people that are going into their 40s and 50s now that didn't grow up with a lot of this technology in the technology that's defining these new generations, where they didn't grow up with that stuff as a small child, where they've watched things radically change throughout their entire lives based around entertainment and medias, and the absorption of those medias as defining their respective generations or defining their, these respective eras or periods. And most of the comedy in Judd Apatow films, directed films, produced films, most of it is centered around other media, making references to other films, references to other TV shows, references to music and celebrities, and in some ways that's really lowbrow, in some ways that's like lowest common denominator, but in other ways it's really astute and really natural, because that's in a lot of ways how people really do joke around. When Knocked Up came out, I really thought that was one of the most candidly on-point comedies I'd ever seen, because it reminded me so much of people that I knew. There's numerous scenes in that movie where there's a group of 6 or 7 guys that are hanging out together, and all of their jokes are good enough to rewatch, to see the film and rewatch the film, where they feel like unscripted, but they feel put together like it's worthy of a Hollywood film. But it felt like something new. It felt like a new type of comedy cinema. And his subsequent films haven't quite lived up to that newness that Knocked Up brought to the screen, that he had sort of been creating with some of his TV shows before that, Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared, most notably. But he's really tried to experiment with other types of naturalism or new types of themes and comedies that other directors and other producers, I don't think, would dare even conceive touching. So even though some of the films in the wake of that movie haven't necessarily been, how would I put it, entertaining, at least they've tried, and I have nothing but respect for him in the regards that he's attempted to tackle some really treacherous subject matter that really isn't that popular.
You rock,
Wow,
Gabe. I have to say that I just have to make this dire interruption and just say that. And I think that your neural associations are such that you can do this, and I think that in of itself is quite a talent. And I do want to recognize that, Gabe.
Thank you, Mark. Doing this show is one of the great pleasures of my life, and a lot of it is that I never know where the show's going to go, what you're going to say, what I'm going to say. I never know where we're going to end up and what terrain we're going to go on to. So, Mark, I always appreciate this back and forth. It's never tiresome. I never leave the show bored. I'm never bored on the show. Like you've said, I've never, you don't live a bored moment in your life, and neither do I. But
well, dude, if these dudes would have tried to park behind my car like they were contemplating, I would be like antithetical to boredom. I'd be like, man, how am I going to get out of this? Yeah, I would have been having a hair-raising episode.
Oh, man. One more thing. One thing I did actually want to talk about on the show that was almost like a notation was I saw Alien Covenant yesterday. I wanted to see it before it left the theaters, and definitely take that in all of its theatrical glory on the large screen. Ridley Scott is a director who, no matter what film he makes, I definitely want to owe him the pleasure. I want to give myself the pleasure of being able to see whatever he makes on a large screen, on a large format, with really loud sound and just really crisp picture, and just really absorb the film in the fullest that a multiplex theater has to offer. And I'll tell you, Alien Covenant did not disappoint. It gave me what I wanted. It's definitely not it's meant to be a Hollywood product. It's a Ridley Scott film, to be sure. But man, does he make? I don't know that anyone makes big, bloated Hollywood obvious films like Ridley Scott does. I mean, he just takes ordinary material, or really
Michael
entertaining,
Mann.
sure to enthrall Hollywood material that in anyone is almost fill in the blank material for other directors, and he just infuses it with a real directness. He just really, really nails down the subject. He just shoots things with a real candidacy. There's just there's a straightforwardness to his direction. And he gets things down to their purest elements, their purest beauty. He doesn't prettify things. He lets the set design itself, or the settings themselves, or the art direction itself speak for itself. He tries to create a sort of singularity to his vision. He uses sort of singular looking surroundings or landscapes, and there's a sort of picturesque blandness to his films, a predictability. A familiarity, and that's probably the biggest credit that I could give to the film The Martian, is that he creates a true sense of home with that movie. Mark and I saw that film in the theater together. And
Did we?
I was pretty disappointed, to be honest, when it first
Is that
came out.
with Matt Damon?
That was.
That was a good film. I think Hollywood makes great films. They're like just the foremost craftsmen in the world, and not to be coyly contradictive to you at all, Gabe. I thought it was a wonderful experience. Anytime I see a Hollywood film, I say, man, these are great craftsmen.
Craftsmanship,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that The Martian had all this craftsmanship, and it is a really well-crafted Hollywood film. It's entertaining. It just has absolutely nothing to offer beyond pretty things with pretty people doing cute, pretty things.
Well, it wasn't a pretty situation, as I recall. My man was almost had it.
Yeah. Well, the fact that Matt Damon still looks like Matt Damon, the fact that all these astronauts in space are always such cute, pretty, predictably.
My man, but that's Hollywood, though. That's part of the deal. When you buy the ticket, you're in on the conspiracy.
I get it.
You're the one who financed it, and me too.
It's just I don't have to like it. But I'll go see these movies because I should.
Wait, you like to take a beating?
Well, I like to know my enemies though, and sometimes your best friend can be your enemy.
Well, that could be the guy parking behind my car now. Dang it, man!
Yeah.
How are you attempting this?
Well,
dude,
like I like
man.
to see every Stanley Kubrick film because not all of them are great, but I like to know why. I don't say, oh, it's okay, oh, it's average, oh, it's decent. Well, why do you feel it? Well, I don't really know. Well, that doesn't. I start talking like that. Pretty soon, I'm not going to have much to write about.
Oh,
I
sure.
start thinking, I start talking like that. I'm going to start thinking like that. Pretty soon, I'm going to start creating like that. You don't start challenging and questioning your opinions and your take on average entertainment. Well, pretty soon you're not going to have much to offer. You're not even going to be able to offer average entertainment. You're going to have no entertainment to offer because it's just going to be garbage. So even going to see something like The Martian and taking I probably thought about the film. I've seen the film 3 times now.
You have?
I saw it once in the theater, and then it was, it was on TV twice, like late at night, and then I think I rewatched it with my dad one night, and then it was on like HBO or something again, and I think I watched it like a third of the way through, and then watched it till the end, and was really, really absorbed both times that I saw it at home or on television without commercials, at the pacing of the film, the sort of consistent look of the film, the sound design, the special effects, the prettiness of all the actors, the sort of that general placid confidence of Hollywood, of the Hollywood ensemble, of Jeff Daniels being Jeff Daniels-y, of
Hey,
Donald Glover.
Gabe, wait, what's your name? Alex says hi from the show across the window from us.
Yeah. Alex
There you
Scott.
hear it. I'll let you do
I
the
miss
talking,
Alex.
man.
Oh, I miss him. He was a good buddy of mine. I miss those guys. Fortress.
Yeah, and actually, just so you know, Gabe, they're right across the window from us, setting up. So if that
like that.
rekindles the embers of your heart, let it
does.
let it burn.
Alien Covenant, though, I got to say, outdoes Prometheus in terms of pure Hollywood entertainment. It gets to the goods. It has a lot to say. It's very entertaining. It's very interesting. But in the end, this is a loud genre action. When I say genre, I mean like films that most people don't want to go see because or that your mom and pop may not want to see because it's mostly comprised of blood and guts and violence and horror things and creatures. But this is about as smart as that material gets. Has a lot of philosophical questions to ask, directly and indirectly, has a lot of allusions to 19th century art, both directly and indirectly, has a lot of...
You mean like romanticism or impressionism? What you said, what did you say, 18th century or 19th century?
Byron.
Oh, okay.
Byron and Shelley and...
18th century, gotcha.
And then later on...
Which would not be impressionism, most certainly.
Well, no, those are romantics.
Right.
So there's a lot of material about the 19th century artists.
Oh, wait a second. Did you say 19th or 18th?
19th century is the 1800s.
Well, I know that. That would be impressionism in the latter half, and romanticism, and not portraiture, but landscapes and so on and so forth as well.
In writing.
Yeah.
It would be in the early 1800s.
Very, very epic romanticism in painting in the 1800s. Yep. Landscapes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Impressionism is probably my favorite period and style of painting that I can never execute myself. At least I've never tried.
I got to give it a try.
Well,
and I got to give Gabe. I got to, my man. I got to give this a try. I'm looking at the clock, dude. I have to mega bid you goodbye, my man.
Oh, mega. All
yeah.
right,
I'm serious,
all right,
dude.
Everyone. All right, Alex. All right, Fortress of Solitude. All right, Mark.
Gabe, we all love you. We miss you. We'll see you sooner than later. Dude, just have a great evening. Rock the night, rock the day. You're the best, Gabe. I got to say goodbye, my man.
I got to say goodbye, Mark. All right, we'll see you all later.
See you then. So, okay, with about 7 seconds left, thank you, dear listeners, man. What a life it is. We will be on at the same time next week on WXR WLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside.